Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about reaching the 1 million download milestone together as women in the middle. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your master certified coach and midlife mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again. The topic I want to coach you on today is what it means to reach and surpass 1 million downloads with this podcast and why this is even a thing with women in the middle. But first, this episode is sponsored by Podcastpalooza. What's going on is that we are all about celebrating around here, and now that the Women in the Middle podcast hit the exciting milestone of 1 million downloads, we're going to do just that. Women in the Middle Podcastpalooza is an online celebration that you are invited to. It's a Zoom party with games and prizes. You can sign up now at www.susierosenstein.com/party. And the details will be emailed to you. Here's what you can do to get ready for the event. Think about your favorite episode or story. You know, one of those episodes that really stuck in your mind for whatever reason. Maybe you laughed, maybe you cried, maybe you just took a nice long pause and allowed yourself to think about something that you hadn't considered before. What is it about the podcast or a specific episode that keeps you coming back for more? What have you learned? How has it changed or added value to your midlife chapter? Whatever it is, please share. Tell your friends. Come to the party. Send me an email. Do all the things. That would be awesome. All right, here we go. Let's talk about getting to 1 million downloads. And guess what? The Women in the Middle podcast is also in the top 1% of podcasts in the world. That's a global rank, my friend, and something for all of us to be proud of. First, I want to thank you. Yeah, you. I couldn't have done this without you. Thanks to you and all of my amazing listeners and women in the middle around the world and those in my community. My intention is that we keep growing and laughing together. This aging thing is way more fun when we stick together. For sure, 100%. Being alone, thinking you're alone, no good, no good. And the podcast allows us to stick together, for sure. Second, I thought I would highlight a few lessons related to my experience with the podcast. So let's dig into that. I think you're going to hear some things that you can apply very easily to your life, because that's what these lessons are. They're about me doing a big project. And they could be applied to any project, any big project. And really, it's all about getting the results that you want. That's what it is in the nutshell. So these lessons really highlight how I was able to do this, which really seems amazing to me that I was able to do this. Okay, let's start. Lesson number 1. Even 50-year-olds can do some super cool things. So what I'm getting at here is that I did something in my 50s, and that is something that I thought I could never do. It has to do with technology. I'd like to call it a technological endeavor. Podcasts are loaded with technology and creativity, but somehow, for me, the technology would get in the way of the creativity, and I would get so nervous about so many things. Make sure you hear what I'm about to say. I did this in my 50s. In fact, I'm 58. I'm on the brink of 59. So close. I started this podcast the day after my birthday in 2017 when I was 54. If you would have told me even 6 years ago that I was going to create and host a podcast that would have over 1 million downloads in my 50s, there's no way I would have believed you. There's no way. And it's for 2 reasons. 1, I have a recurring but now managed thought that I suck at technology. And there are so many moving technological parts to this podcast thing. Number 2, 1 million downloads seems like a massive amount, and I wouldn't have been able to even imagine that I could do it. I just couldn't dream that big. So my amazing women in the middle, I want you to take this to heart. I learned to manage my thoughts around technology. My new thought that I use all the time is I'm learning to manage the technology I need for my business. And here's another one. I'm great at figuring stuff out. And you know what? If I need more help, I know that Google has my back. And I also have smart friends. Both those things. The other thing, this 1 million downloads thing. Yes, that seems large, and I created it anyway. I can do hard things. Of course, you helped me. I'm learning to dream bigger, and I'm more committed than ever to help midlife women like you get out of your own way and actually live your best life after 50. There is way more fun to be had, and I will help you. Okay, highlight and lesson number 2. Consistent action and commitment will take you where you need to go. Here's a little background to my podcast journey. I started the podcast in July 2017. I published episode 251 the week of the 1,000,000th download. Is millionth a word? I think it is. It's so exciting. So the download history is July 27th, 2017. How many downloads? 0. The podcast basically went from growing 50,000 downloads in 6 months to growing 178,000 downloads in 6 months. That's how things have grown. So my take on this really is about showing up and committing to the project. You know what I always say, plan in advance and commit to the plan. For me, Monday is podcast day. Everyone in the house knows it. No running the dryer with those noisy dryer balls. No running the water in the laundry room tub because for some reason it's crazy loud. And my bird Dee Dee must be patient and tolerant about going into her second cage in the other room. That is just the way it is. Now, the other thing about consistency is belief. And that is highlight in lesson number 3. It's not just your action that has to be consistent. Your belief has to be consistent. When you're doing a big project like this, and like I said, it could be anything, your mindset has to be all in and consistent with the belief that you're doing this. Like this is happening. You have to believe in the value of what you're doing, and you have to believe with all of your heart. Producing a podcast every week is not for the faint of heart. While it's fun and creative and something to be proud of, it's also a grind, and it's challenging, and it's taxing. I'm definitely getting better at it. I can feel it. I'm becoming a better interviewer, and I'm getting better at teaching and telling stories. But you gotta believe. When you're tired, you gotta believe. When you don't know what you're gonna talk about, you gotta believe. And when you doubt yourself, you gotta believe. The belief that gets me through every single time is that I believe I can help you. I believe that the unique combination of my training, my education, my experience, my stories, and my upbeat approach can help coach and teach you in a way that you will have important insights and be able to make the changes in your life that you're so desperate to make. Here's the thing. Being your coach like this inspires me more than I've ever been professionally inspired before. Seriously, your vulnerability and willingness to get unstuck and grow are what fuels my creativity and motivation. You might be a current or past client. You might be in the Women in the Middle Academy or my free Facebook group, the Women in the Middle Community. You might be on my mailing list, or perhaps you only connect with me here as a listener. Whatever way you're connecting with me and or my community, you're connecting. You've identified a need to immerse yourself into this kind of information, growth, and thought work. You want more. It drives me crazy when amazing women get in their own way and waste time feeling stuck. That's what I did 5 long and painful years. And when I see amazing women wasting valuable time, spinning in confusion, not getting help, not taking action, being miserable about being so stuck, waiting for something exciting to happen rather than making something exciting happen, it makes me think about my parents. Here's why. And I've explained some of this on other episodes, but here it is in this whole context. If you're wasting valuable time, quite frankly, you have the privilege to age. This situation just makes me nuts. And like I mentioned, I have brought up a bit of my background in other episodes. You may remember that I have far outlived my parents because they didn't have the privilege to age. I believe that aging is a gift, but so many women don't see it that way, and our society doesn't always see it that way. That's why we have important work to do. That's why this is so motivating and fulfilling. On the podcast, you help me spread the message of midlife goodness. You help me spread the message of midlife opportunity. You help me spread the message of midlife fun. You want this information. You crave this information. And you're ready to consume this information and apply it to your life. That is winning in my books. And when I think about why the podcast, I mean, I could have had any number of big projects to help me find you and help you this way. Why the podcast? And then I remember, I've always loved radio. I listened to NPR as a kid. Of course, now that I'm in Canada, I love CBC, and I love talk radio in general, and I always have. I love sound. I love audio. I love music. I had a tape recorder when I was 8, and I loved it. My cousin Bill and I used to make these commercials. One of them we made was called the Tiny Bowl Man, based on the Tidy Bowl Man, and we would flush this imaginary little tiny person down the toilet, and we would record the sound of the toilet flushing. And we did other commercials, and we just had the best time. And of course, what was even more fun than that was recording farts. I love recording sound, and farts are funny. What can I say? And I have a feeling somebody listening right now also did that. I don't know. If you did, send me an email for sure. I had the best time with that tape recorder. It was so much fun. Now, in general, when it comes to technology, I'm a late adopter. And while it makes sense to me that I was attracted to podcasting because of sound and radio and all that, it's also crazy to me that I've been this consistent and creative and committed to all that is involved. Sometimes I turn on the recording software and it doesn't work. And I used to start to sweat. I was like, oh my God, I have to change a button. I have to click on something. I don't know what I'm doing. I would actually start to sweat until I remembered the thought work. I remembered Google, and I started to be able to figure some things out. And then I started to calm down, and all of that thought work kicked in. But like I said, there's a lot that's involved. And it all comes back to the importance of belief and working on believing on purpose. You have to believe hard, even when you think you have no business in believing. You have to believe hard when you think you have no business doing a project that's based on technology when you know you have the tendency to freak out. You have to believe hard, even when your belief isn't quite there yet. I remember thinking about a big, scary goal for the podcast being reaching 5 million women. I think I will have to up that number. Okay, highlight in lesson number 4. This one's short and sweet. Take high quality action based on high quality beliefs. That's what I did with the trademark. Women in the Middle is a registered trademark, and I believed in the podcast enough back then to take this important action. And highlight in lesson number 5, be as authentic as possible. This one seems so obvious, but for me, there was a bit of a learning curve going on. It's not that I wasn't authentic as a human being. I am. I really am and always have been. But finding your comfort level with being authentic on a podcast or anytime you're putting yourself out there is a different thing. Specifically, what I'm talking about is believing that my upbeat approach, my laugh, what I think is funny, all of this stuff that's really me, that it was going to be okay. I wasn't 100% sure that being me in this way was part of my brand, that it was going to be a good idea to have all of that as part of my brand and that would really help people. It took me some time to see that when I'm truly myself, especially in these ways, that it actually helps with my connection to you, the listener. It's the same with my clients and the women in my community. I had these old messages, these thoughts in my head that being lighthearted this way would be seen as non-professional and somehow have a negative effect when it came to actual transformation and insights by the client and the listeners. Do you see what I'm saying? So basically, that being lighthearted and upbeat and silly wasn't going to cut it as a professional. You're not going to believe what helped me understand the power of being yourself. iTunes reviews. When I was reading these reviews, there was a consistent message about my upbeat approach, about my laugh, about my stories. I read it over and over again. And as soon as I understood the pattern, it confirmed it all and it freed me up just to let my silly freak flag fly and just be me, stupid stories and all. I can't help it. I'm an upbeat, glasses half full type of gal. What can I say? So you get to hear all about Nico the Noof and his slobbery antics. You get to laugh with me when I was naked and afraid in the shower, unable to identify the squishy, mysterious thing on my arm. You get to think carefully about if you might be able to pee in the woods right along with me, as I'm not doing it that well and I'm peeing down my yoga pants while I'm out on a beautiful walk with my husband and son. You get to laugh hysterically with me at the sexual title of the book that was right next to my little book on Amazon, my book, 50 Ways to Celebrate Life After 50. There it was, just sitting innocently on the screen next to this book with this big giant sexual reference. I felt just, all I could say is I felt terrible. Like I felt like I was inviting women to purchase the book and then they would see this other book, which is so funny. I just thought I was shocking my listeners. Anyway, hilarious. So I'll put the links to these references in the show notes. Of course, there are many more funny stories and things that I've shared with you and things that have happened to me. And there's also all kinds of stories and memories from childhood that I tell and incorporate into these stories because I love knowing that you have similar references and memories too. Why not illustrate some of important self-development points with a good Brady Bunch reference here and there, right? We all grew up about the same time, and it's funny to include those memories and stories as well. So, those are my 5 big highlights and lessons from creating and hosting a podcast that now has over 1 million downloads. Lesson number 1, even 50-year-olds can do super cool things. Lesson number 2, consistent action and commitment can take you where you need to go. Lesson number 3, your belief also has to be consistent. Lesson number 4, take high-quality action based on high-quality beliefs. And lesson number 5, be as authentic as possible. Again, thank you so much for being a listener. For sure, I couldn't do this podcast thing without you, and I'm incredibly grateful that you're in my community. That's it for this episode. As you know, my focus as your midlife coach is to help you get unstuck, clear, and excited about your life again. As midlife women, so often we feel it in our gut. We're meant for more. I bet you feel this way too. You have something big in you, but you just don't know exactly what it is or how to get there, but you can feel it. If you want to figure this out fast and have more fun getting there, there is no better mechanism, no better way to move forward like this than with a community of people just like you, a community of women just like you. I would love to be able to help you find that thing you know you have inside you. I want to invite you to check out the Women in the Middle Academy. It's a 6-month coaching program where you get all the support you need to apply what you're learning here in the podcast, but more importantly, you get the clarity and excitement in your life again that you're looking for. So don't waste another second feeling stuck. Book your momentum call and we'll have a quick chat. Head over to www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. For show notes and links, head over to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and you'll see the episode right there. Let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.